Okay, so I went ahead and did a quick design of your store. This is the Church and Things location in Mesa, Arizona. I also pulled it up on um, Google, saw some pictures inside. You have, um, actually, this first picture that I saw up here, you have a bunch of things hanging from the wall, from the ceiling, and a lot of shelving that's going up almost to the ceiling. So it's not really ideal to have 4K cameras covering the entire store, because if you put a 4K camera here, this whole area is going to be obstructed behind this overhanging row of flags or whatever that you have over here. So I mean, a fisheye camera or a 4K camera would be more ideal, possibly over here, but again, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, you could put a fisheye camera here if you wanted to take advantage of the heat maps around the whole store. You could also get better pixel density with individual 2 megapixel cameras that would be a lot less expensive, but ultimately would, require one line going to each camera, whereas the fisheye camera, it would be able to capture the whole area, and it would still only require one line, but it takes a heavier load on the NVR because it's a higher resolution camera. We do have lower resolution fisheyes, like 5 megapixels, that are made for indoor purposes like this, but ultimately you have a pretty decent amount of space here, and a 5 megapixel fisheye camera would be really great in this center area here, and the further you get toward the edges, the less pixel density you'll have, and all your edges will be you won't have the best view. So for example, if someone were standing right here in front of this counter, then wherever he or she would be standing in front of would be potentially blocked because of the view from the fisheye camera in the middle of the room. It would make a lot more sense if you had maybe one fisheye camera, maybe two, and then have numerous 2 megapixel cameras, let's say in this area here looking down, so that you can see the counters clearly and you can see the interaction between the customer and the attendant, the store attendant. Same thing with over here, like the fisheye camera would not be able to see on this side of these body jewelry displays because they're pretty much obstructing whatever's happening over here. So it would be ideal to supplement that with like a 2 megapixel camera here looking down. Also, let's take a look at the actual outdoor area first. This is a 4 megapixel camera. So to give you a quick idea of the colors, red means you can identify people who are unknown to you, as well as license plates. Orange is a little bit more pixelated, but you can still make that identification. Yellow is you can identify people who are known to you, and in some cases make out the license plate. Anything beyond the yellow is really meant more for like situational awareness. Yes, you have like a 30 to 40-year-old male or whatever in the store that's like in the back corner, and he's wearing green, and he has brown hair. And then beyond that, you can just tell that there's someone there, but you can't really tell much about that person. Or if it's a parking lot, you can tell that a vehicle is there. You might be able to, I would say, identify the make and model potentially in this green area, but beyond that, it's really just, you can just identify that a vehicle is there. So looking at this design, we have a 4 megapixel camera here. This is the Starlight Plus Dome, which allows you to see color at nighttime as long as there's minimal ambient lighting. And in case there's ever any moment of pitch blackness, then the backup infrareds will kick in and you'll see black and white at nighttime. This has a 113-degree angle, so that being said, you can see this entire area here minus the corner of where this camera will be installed, and you can cover probably half of your parking lot with this camera. The other camera option, and by the way, this is an AI camera, so it will notify you if you want. You can set up notifications for human or vehicle detection or both, which means if you, let's say you guys are closed at after 10 p.m. Everyone's out of the building after 10 p.m. and there's very little traffic, if anything, after midnight. So let's say between midnight to 4 a.m. Monday through Sunday, you want to be notified if there's any humans detected on this camera, and you'll get a push notification to your Dawa app that tells you a human or a vehicle or both, depending on what you want, have been detected. Here's a screenshot, and so on and so forth. So it's a very valuable feature to have, and so is the Starlight, especially. I mean, in Phoenix, it's not really, you're not gonna have like a lot of rain, I would think, but if you do have rain or snow, then the Starlight functionality allows you to see like it's daytime with minimal interference from the rain, whereas infrared mode would just result in like a wall of rain depending on how big of a storm it is. And then over here, camera number 5, I'm covering the other parking lot. I don't even know if this is something that you need to cover, but this one has a little bit better pixel density. You can see that it has more orange and yellow coverage, with a little bit more of a blind spot directly in front of the camera. This one has a little bit less of a blind spot. The reason for that is number 4 here has 113-degree angle, and number 5 has 92 degree, probably 93-degree angle here. So it's more ideal for installing in a corner and viewing a little bit further away. So you can cover pretty much almost the entire parking lot. Probably not that last, well, yeah, I mean, you can cover the whole parking lot. That looks like that last space is just a tree. And then, so I think the 4 megapixel resolution is ideal for your parking lot, your outdoors. This is a bullet camera. This is a dome camera. I looked at your outdoor area and I saw that, let's see, I saw that you have like this overhang here, this eave. You can install a bullet or a dome from underneath the eave. If you guys have a lot of vandals or whatever, then I recommend probably having a dome camera over a bullet. So just keep that in mind. And then for your entrance exit camera, Dawa has a newer dual sensor dome camera, which means you only need to run one cable to it. It'll save you on installation costs, and it will show up as 2 separate cameras in your recorder software. So it will record 2 separate channels. Each sensor is 110 degrees, so it's a very wide angle, and it's 2 megapixel 1080p. So, you know, let's zoom in a little bit here. So again, this you'll be able to identify people here in this area, and then, I mean, I drew walls here. Ideally, this is going to be glass, so you're going to be able to see through, you know, these areas since they're glass. But and I don't know how far these walls go in, but the more you adjust the walls, the more you can see, because the less is obstructed. So this dual sensor camera, if you placed one here, then it would just be one new line ran by your installer, so less labor, and then you can have one sensor pointing outdoors and one sensor pointing indoors. The one pointing outdoors has wide dynamic range to account for the sunlight coming in from the windows, so it will mitigate the overexposure on the outdoors and the underexposure on the indoors. And then this sensor looking in is not going to have WDR, but you're not going to need it since there are no windows in that direction, only in this direction, I presume. Other than that, I think, as I mentioned, we can maybe put some 5 megapixel cameras around this door where you have larger areas that are open, and that will give you a clear, unobstructed view, like no blind spots, as long as you don't have any obstructions. I know you told me you have columns in the store, so those columns would act as obstructions, but I don't really see any columns here. I just see a lot of merchandise, some counters and racks, but no real columns or anything that I see here. Maybe this is a partition in your store, I don't really know, but ultimately if you have columns, those would act as obstructions as well. So you know, the 2 megapixel cameras would be more ideal to get you what you want in a shorter area of space. We have some 2 megapixel eyeball cameras. We talked about the eyeball cameras being more ideal for you because the dome camera isn't as maneuverable and the bullet camera is not really tamper proof, but at the same time, usually it's not really an ideal choice for an indoor application. I mean, it could be you have 14 foot high ceilings here, so you know you could potentially have a bullet camera where you don't have to worry about anybody tampering with it, but it's really your call, and it's really a matter of aesthetics and maneuverability. So if you're going to be mounting these cameras from the ceiling, all of them from the ceiling, you can maneuver them however you like. It's not going to be an issue at 14 feet high. So dome, turret, / eyeball, or bullet, they're all going to be ideal for you. We have some 2 megapixel turret cameras on sale for around 85 bucks, and those have WDR as well, so wide dynamic range. So if you're pointing them outdoors or toward your windows, then you'll be fine in terms of exposure. They're infrared, they're weatherproof, you can really install them anywhere. So this is an example of a 2 megapixel camera and what you can expect to see. So the further away you go, or let's start with the closer you get to the camera, and again this is at 14 feet high, the closer that you want to see, the higher pixel density you'll get. So you can identify unknown people here. You don't necessarily need to identify unknown people, because if people are coming in through this area here, they're already going to get identified. So you can, this one has an angle of 81 degrees, so it's not going to see the entire corner of a store, but you could potentially, you know, I know you don't have this wide of an area, an open area, but let's say you have this much of an open area, then you can have another camera kind of like crisscrossing it. And I mean, you can really see quite a bit, almost the entire length of your store, almost, if you didn't have any obstructions. So the 2 megapixels, they have a lot of, they're going to be most suitable for you over here. And if you had the ability, you said you could potentially mount on the column instead of from the ceiling. Let me show you what it would look like if you reduce the installation height from 14 feet to, let's say, 10 feet, which would still be out of reach for most people. So now your little red area has increased dramatically, and you have more pixel density. So over here, because you're mounted at 14 feet high, you don't even have a red area. Over here, you drop it down 4 feet, and now you have a red area. So you have that extra high pixel density. The cache registers, I think we can go with maybe 2 4 megapixel bullet cameras that have varifocal zoom. So let's say you have a cache register over here somewhere, and let's say mounting from the ceiling at 14 feet high, 4 megapixels, and your width, the area of width, you said you have a 16-foot wide platform for your registers. So if you had one camera mounted at the ceiling at 14 feet high, at 4 megapixels, this is giving you a width of approximately, let's see, I mean, even at 28 feet high, you still have really good pixel density. If you wanted to see denominations though, you would need much more than 80 pixels per feet. So that's why we're gonna go with 2 4 megapixel cameras, so that way you can have really high pixel density over that area, over your registers, and get a decent angle so that you can identify you know, what people are handing to the cashier and what the cashier is handing back to the customer, and the exchange of money and products and so on and so forth.